My name is Sadie Nardini, and I call home, Iowa. I'm from the Midwest, but current home is Brooklyn, New York. Represent. So the story of how yoga and I found each other is a little bit different than how I hear most yogis came to the practice. I knew nothing about yoga. I was younger, I was a teenager. I had a spinal incident where a big man jumped on my head in a swimming pool, knocked me out, and dislocated my neck in 2 places so badly that it impinged my spinal cord. So I basically went offline for the next 2 years. I couldn't move very well, I wasn't breathing properly, and I just had a host of issues. Since I couldn't exercise, my mom found this dusty old book on the shelf called Richard Hittleman's 28-Day Yoga Plan or Program, something like that. And I was like, who are these people doing these weird postures, these moves? But since I had a lot of time on my hands, I just started doing them. They made me feel better. Eventually, they started helping me calm down and not have so many panic attacks, and my body started working better. So I was like, this yoga thing is amazing, and I started chasing it towards health. It took me about 10 years to do that into the kind of practice that you see me doing today. But yoga, I hear it all the time, yoga saved my life. Yoga actually saved my life. Without it, I would probably still be in a ball on a floor somewhere in the Midwest. I came to teach yoga so reluctantly. I always said, I love doing this practice, it's my personal practice, but I'm not called to teach it, I'm never going to teach it to other people. In fact, it made me feel so nervous to think about sharing my voice that way. So my teacher in Seattle for 3 years taught me the practice, and then she suddenly decided to move to India. So I was stuck there without any yoga class unless I stepped forward as she asked me to do and taught the class. So for me, it was the question of never having any more yoga. That was the only class there was there at that time, especially in the style I liked. So I had to make that decision, and I stepped into the teacher's seat not because I felt like I was ready at all, but because I just wanted the practice to continue for me and the students. That urgency of service that continues in me to this day was the reason that I got up there to speak. The reason I started putting my own classes up on YouTube is not what most people think. Many people think, oh, of course, you know, you came to this, you were a marketed, branded kind of yoga person or something, and I decided to do it. But actually, I just was on this thing called YouTube that I didn't really understand, watching kids in the Midwest jump off of rooftops onto trampolines and then fall or whatever, and there are these kinds of videos, monster trucks and whatnot, and I was thinking, how cool would it be if I could watch some yoga on here? I searched for any kind of yoga videos on YouTube, and all I found was old black and white 1930s videos of like Iyengar doing his practice and Krishnamacharya doing breathing, but there weren't any contemporary yoga practices really on there at all. So I thought, well, I wonder if I put some yoga videos on YouTube alongside these other ones, maybe people in the world could find the practice more easily and for free. I had no idea how to do that. I was not tech savvy at all. So I went to my local store and I said, hey, I want to do this. What camera should I use? How do you light something like that? And show me where the on button is. And I went home to my tiny little Brooklyn apartment. I turned the lamp over backwards for lighting. I realized very quickly you don't shoot straight into the open windows with the sun streaming in, or you'll look like a shadow. And I learned by doing. So the first videos are of that little tiny Brooklyn space with the couch up on one end just off camera and me hoping for the best. But because of that, so many people have seen this practice, and now, of course, YouTube yoga is everywhere. I don't always really know what I want, but I do know the feeling, the sensation, and the state of beingness, of being in my passion, of being in my creativity. And really, yoga teaching and putting videos out on YouTube, staying in touch with my social media, going out to a nice dinner, choosing a wine that I like and drinking it, writing with myself each night or taking a nap, whatever my rhythm is during the day, stems from me understanding and listening for where the shiny places are. So I think of it as the shiny place. And what that means to me is I'll sit in the moment and say, what is arising for me right now? What's light? What's living? What's exciting? What makes me feel expansive right now? What is the next thing that's kind of got that spotlight on it for me? It might be something I want to do, or it might be something that I don't really want to do, but I know that's the next thing that I'm being called for whatever reason. So I go for the shiny places, and that has led me to create an entire career on a really next level without a lot of forethought, just following that sutra or that thread that's kind of lit up. You know, I think of Finding Nemo, and in the ocean current, he's like, how do I get to Sydney, Australia? And these turtles are like, yo, bro, follow us. And he says, you're so slow. How could I possibly follow you all the way there? I have to get there fast. And they say, oh, look, we're going to go for the current right there. And it's this kind of sparkly, ribbony thing. And once you get in it, you start to go faster, and it gets you where you want to go. So I've always thought of the Finding Nemo current as my shiny place. And, you know, sometimes I'm off, but I try to get right back on. And that has led me really, really far. Well, when I go teach, and I've taught all over the world, I continue to do that. I've met so many different kinds of people in radically different cultures. But there are universal themes. It's like there are just a few things that everybody seems to want. They don't want to be as afraid as they are right now. They don't want to let fear or doubt stop them from doing the things that they feel like they're meant to do. Or they want to clarify and discover what they're meant to do at all. Once they find that, they want to know the steps. Like, how do I even approach that or get there at all? They want to understand success, prosperity, abundance, all of that, financially or otherwise, and how to move towards it. And they want more health, more love, less fear, less suffering. Mostly the main thing is, though, each person ultimately wants to find their core relationship with themselves. They want to be the most of who they are, and I call it rocking who you are from the inside out. This is really at the center of all of these different paths, all of these different cravings or desires to do anything or transform anything, is can we find ourselves here, each individual? What does core strength mean? How do I become more vulnerable and more empowered? And then how do I move that out into the world as me? So finding their voice at all in this present moment, so important. So I entered into this style of yoga called core strength Vinyasa yoga. To me, it's a way to realign people and get them to their center in physical asana practice, but also, of course, between them and themselves and in life. The core, that word, core, is so often misunderstood as like this hardening or this gripping thing. Like, oh, to be core strong, it means nothing's ever going to hurt you again. You'll never feel fear. You're going to be so strong. You can share your truth with anyone and, forget what they think. So it's almost this kind of hard boiling and the shell encasing you. That's really an epidemic, I think, in a lot of exercise forms, just physically, of over predominating the abdominal wall. Like core strength to a lot of people means we're going to rock the abs and set them on fire. But in fact, true core strength is a whole body thing, and it goes much deeper than that. So I've studied a lot of anatomy and biomechanics, and just on a physical level, your core is from your feet, through your spine, through your body, to your head, and out the arms and hands. This is a muscle meridian or line of interconnected muscles that all intercommunicate. They're closer to the bones. They're deeper within you. And they actually are more subtle in their strength. They are more resilient, and they help you to wave and open your joints, open your body, and make space while becoming even more powerful. So when you think about this outer you, or how you present yourself to the world as your core strength and your empowerment, that's not quite it yet. There's another layer, a more profound sense of self that we have to get through that outer stuff. It might be the mind field, as Sally Kempton, one of my great meditation teachers, calls it, of all of these fears, of all of these doubts, of all of this interface that we have with ourselves and the world. It might be gripping into the poses too hard or trying to work the outer muscles so much that we neglect our inner power. And so true inner core strength is that relationship that we're always having, trying to draw deeper inside to center, and ultimately to reharmonize between that kind of idea of vulnerability and power, and how to dance between the two. So for me, that's what's really interesting now. Can you be at center? How and where? What does it feel like there? And how effortless it is to be in that true core strength and express it out to the world. That's what I'm doing here. That's what this is all about now for me. Well, I think it's so challenging, not only for most people, but for myself, when we get closer to something that really matters, whether it's an intimate relationship with someone, whether it's a job that you really want, whether it's hoping for this yoga pose, or whether it's thinking about actually singing in front of people or speaking your voice to the world in some way, starting your own business instead of working for someone else. Whatever that is for you, when we meet up against risk, when we meet risk, the gripping, the grabbing, the external starts to occur, and it's very easy, in fact, I think way easier for the fears to arise around it and the doubt. A lot of people will never approach risk because they're so afraid of what will happen if they fail. It's almost as if they'd rather have the dream of what they could have been rather than actually risk to fail, or as Torald says so often, dare to suck. Many people never dare to suck, and therefore they stay stuck and they stay kind of mired in that mucky place where they'll never know. Well, yes, the fears arise more when people get closer, when you risk more, when you risk to love, when you risk to learn or self-express. But what joy, and in fact the only joy and the only satisfaction, is found when you can see what you're truly made of, when you can move through that fear of risk into that quiet space where you're actually just being completely natural. And I've felt that, I've touched into it, and it's one of the most exciting, freeing places. So I'd rather know what that is than dream about it, and I'd rather not let risk or the fear of failure keep me from being truly me. I'd rather go the whole way, baby, and see what happens so that I never ever regret trying, and I never say what if. That really drives me into surrender. So for me, that's the journey we're on right now. Of course, I'd love to give credit to each specific person who's brought me here and led me to this knowledge. Definite shout out to Kira for inviting me here and giving me the space to do this at all, to Torald for being the next teacher on my path that is meeting me exactly where I needed to be met to take me to my next level. But really to all the teachers, ones I loved their message and I'm like, yes, we resonate, we're on the same page, you get me, I get you. And the ones that were so super painful for me, the ones I resisted and couldn't see it as a teaching at all because I wanted the thing so much that they weren't giving me. But now looking back, I can bow and say thank you so much to all of them for helping me to inform myself of where I am today, of what I need to grow, of what doesn't work for me, of what does work for me, what I want, what I don't want. It's been a really beautiful ride, and so, hey, thanks. And universe, bring it on. More to come. If someone would have asked me last week what my offering would be for anyone along the path of self-discovery as I am, I would have probably said, you know, just do those practices that get you into center, and if you're feeling suffering, you know, do the work on it. But this week, it's all changed. It's changed because of the experience that I've had here in Ojai with Torald, with Kira, and with all of you. So this week, I would say it's not as hard as you're making it to come back into center. It's a simple exhale. It's a simple shift back in where a lot of us are pushing forward, trying to prove something, trying to make something happen, trying to express yourself. And there's a hardening and an aggression there. But instead to come back into this idea of moving effortlessly into the flow that's always in you and always was. It's just inside your skin. Just sit back and see what it feels like to not do so much and to be more. I'd say more, but I'm kind of having a good time just being right where I am.